Okay, welcome back to another great episode of Coffee in the Library. We are going to talk about an issue that I cannot name outright because there are certain algorithms out there that are going to clamp down, shadow ban, prevent this thing from going out there because we're talking about a certain thing that they don't want us to talk about. But before we get into the topic, Pastor Chipita Sibale of Kabwata Baptist Church, welcome.
Thank you, Mons. It's good to be here and welcome to our viewers.
Yeah, this is, I don't even know what episode we are on, but this is an episode of Coffee in the Library. Yes, so our topic today is the irrational, I'm calling it the irrational fear of death that we have. Something has happened over the last year or two that has exposed a certain fear of death among us. Is there such a thing as a rational fear of death and an irrational fear of death? How do we tell which is which?
All right, so just a bit of understanding of things. So when you say something is rational or rational, basically saying it's something that is based on logic or reason. So when you say irrational, it's the opposite. Yeah, it's something that's not based on logic or reason. Now, when we talk of death, and let's use the current example, the coronavirus. There's a sense in which you're seeing both irrational fear of death and the rational fear of death. Now, irrational fear of death is where looking at the circumstances in the sense that people are dying from the coronavirus. And then based on that, it's based on reason and logic. You're seeing what's happening. And then there's a sense in which you wonder, especially in the early years of COVID, the first time we heard of it, 2019 into 2020, was we didn't know how it was transmitted. There were so many views. So in that sense, there was this fear, and the fear was as a result of a lack of information. So you didn't know whether you have it or not, you didn't know who has it or not. So in that sense, you could say there was some bit of rational in it. But now the irrational is the result of now we've got all this information, and then we've sort of now boxed certain events as it is in those events where now there's this where you can get coronavirus or not. And what am I saying is, you find that people are saying don't go to church. Like church, COVID is just sitting at church waiting for us. But it's okay to go to the mall. It's okay to go to work. It's okay to go to any other function. So it's not based on logic, but it's based on it's not logic, so it's irrational in that sense, because there's nothing that tells you that if you're in this place or in that place, you're safe or you're unsafe. So COVID-19 has really brought about some aspect of irrational fear of death.
When I'm thinking rational and irrational fear, I sort of think of it in terms of a child, right? A child who comes to the parent and says, "Mom, Dad, I'm afraid of the dark. I think that there is a
boogeyman."
Yes, there's a boogeyman in my room. That would be an irrational fear because it's
not based on reason or logic. Or on fact.
It would be one thing if the child is saying, "I think that there's a bear in my bedroom, and there's a bear." in that, yes, there's that rational and irrational fear of death. Now, relating to the situation that we have, I think it would be because this discussion tends to have no nuance. The moment you question the situation, you are labeled as some sort of denier of the facts that are on the ground. And so, rational in that, I don't think we're looking at it as rational in that sense. Like there's no disease or anything like that. When I think irrational fear of death, I think this idea that death can be avoided, almost indefinite. When I'm thinking irrational fear of death, I'm thinking of it in that sense, where there's this death is the greatest fear. There's nothing to be feared more than death. Or that there is a way in which we can wrap ourselves up in bubble wrap and cling wrap and avoid any exposure to harm or fear or death. So like rational and irrational in that sense. And so looking at it from there are some things we can protect ourselves from, and there are others that we cannot. So there's that rational and irrational nature to it. And when processing through it, it's sort of, from my mind, it's like there is almost an attack on the sovereignty of God. Yeah, it seems like I can even feel the pushback. Like you are being too harsh. It's got nothing to do with God's sovereignty. But how do we mesh these, like this rational, irrational, in light of the fact that there is a God who has ordained all things?
So for instance, one of the things that we need to have in mind and be clear about is what you mentioned, the sovereignty of God. Now, the sovereignty of God is, first of all, it's something that people fight, particularly non-Christian, even some of the Christians. It's that when you talk of the sovereignty of God, you've got this idea of God that God is just supposed to do good things for us. Now, when you talk of sovereignty of God, we're saying God is in control of all things. And that includes your life. And so if God has said you will die because of coronavirus, there's nothing that you're going to do about it. Coronavirus will kill you. Now, yes, you can go to the hospital, you can even get vaccinated. But if God who is sovereign saw it fit in eternity back before you were there, that COVID-19 will kill you, there's nothing that you'll do about it. But also tied to that is that there is God's sovereignty, then there's human responsibility. The two of them are never in conflict. They're like two guardrails parallel to each other. So human responsibility entails doing everything with the knowledge I have to protect myself from COVID-19. But then I should not live as if that's the only thing that I'm supposed to do. There is a God who's sovereign. Now, the misunderstanding about God's sovereignty is that if I just sat here and do nothing, and if God has ordained, or God who's sovereign decided, then it will happen. Because God who is sovereign has also put in me the means. So I know that one day I will die. But when I'm crossing the road, I don't cross with my eyes closed that if I'm going to die today, let it be so. But I'm cautious because the means is that I know a car will kill me. And so I have to observe the traffic rules. Now, sometimes we live as if I observe the traffic rules, then I cannot be bashed by a car. A car can lose control and hit me. But the point is, God who's sovereign doesn't need anyone's consultation. He does as he pleases. So even in this COVID-19, some people have been questioning God's sovereignty. He's allowed it. So the question we need to ask ourselves, then why God has allowed it to happen? May He give us wisdom to know how to respond to this.
What you're saying reminds me of a story called The Merchant of Samara, where this merchant is selling his products in the streets, and he sees death coming for him. Or he sees death in the streets. He looks at death, and death, he's shocked. Death also looks shocked, and so he he's afraid.
Scampers.
He runs away, goes to another. He goes to Sibale.
Yeah.
And he thinks, okay,
I'm
safe here. And then the following day he meets death. And he says,
what are you doing?
What are you doing here? I ran away from you.
Yeah.
And then death says, I was also shocked when I saw you there because I knew
it's today.
Our appointment was here in
place.
Sibale. And there's an element of that what you're talking about with God's sovereignty. It's that almost like what will happen will happen. Que sera, whatever will be, will be. And so the analogy I've got in my head is there are two different ways of doing this. There's the fatalism. I shouldn't do anything, whatever happens will happen. And then there is the overly cautious. Everything is in my control. I can protect, I can provide, and then that angle. So how do we determine when to run and when to hide? And to frame it just one last way, the image I have in my head is there is a bully in my neighborhood. I need to go to school. There's a bully in my neighborhood who I said, if you come out of the house, I will beat you. Right? But I need to go to school. There are things I have to do. Right? Irrational fear is knowing that the bully is outside. He is a bully, he's big, he can beat me. But I also have things to do. Right?
Things must be, life must move.
Yes, there are things that have to be done in light of that. I hope you understand the question I'm posing. So how do we harmonize?
True. So should I go to school or stay at home?
Yes.
Because there's a bully out there.
Yes. There's a rational, there's a logical thing going on out here. The irrational position, as I say, would be to stay there. But how do we
marry the two? Well, in that scenario, for instance, we forget that the bully at some point may have to leave the streets
to go to the toilet
or something, and then give you that window of opportunity. So in that case, for you, you'll be observing the bully. Is he still at your gate? Is he still walking to and from in front of your house? Has he turned around? Is he tired now? Is he leaving? So the point is this. In that example, is at one point, there will be that window of opportunity for you to go to school. It might even mean you getting there late. And that's one. Then the other way would be, you find ways. It could be, ask people within your home to accompany you. Or find a way of reporting the bully. But this is just an example. But let's get back to our situation. Our situation is such that we live in a land that has laws. And as Christians, to address Christians, Romans 13 and First Peter, it talks about us obeying or honoring the king. The governing authority. And the point is this, is that because God has placed us in a particular situation and location, and there are laws governing that kind of let's say country, you must be able to live within those laws, and that's by doing so we are ultimately obeying the ultimate authority, which is God. Now, what are those laws? We must mask up, social distancing, maintain high levels of hygiene, and all those things. Be careful and all those things. If you can avoid certain movement, do so. Now, the authorities are not saying us don't do this, but saying do them, but within these limitations. Now, we confuse Romans 13 with a situation in Acts 5. Now, in Acts 5, the apostles were told, don't preach in Christ's name. Now, in a case, for instance, where I'm told don't do this, then I must be able to say, okay, so which is the ultimate authority here? If I follow what the law of the land is telling me, am I ultimately disobeying God? If our outmates obey God, then I won't obey. So what am I really saying? This is what I'm saying. The point is, we live in a home or in a community that has laws. As Christians, let's try as much as possible to live within those laws. And then be at liberty to do what you want within the limitations of the law. But as long as those laws are not causing you to disobey God, who is the ultimate authority in any given situation. So, what we need to realize is that if we become rebellious, simply because no, I don't agree with this, I don't want to be masking up, I don't want to be doing social distancing. What you are doing there is you're not being sought and done. But you're simply be deemed as one who's rebellious. Now, in these two, in this case, we must be able to see what is it that I can do productively, with full vigor, as it were, or full involvement, but protecting or maintaining the social order, as it were, because of the
there's something you brought to my mind that it might not be your big takeaway from this, but it's even possible I'm wrong. I was listening to something the other day that you made me remember what I was listening to the other day, where the people who were speaking were basically saying there's a way in which we as Christians should be sharp. There's no use getting arrested for no reason. And so if what is required for me to go out and minister to my neighbor, if what is required for me to be salt and light is for me to follow some guidelines I might not agree with, mask up, sanitize every 3 seconds, whatever it is. If that is what is required for me to be in that space to minister to my neighbor, I should do that. Right? There's no point in me, no, I won't do any of this. I get myself arrested for no reason. Now, how am I helping my neighbor?
Then you fail to be salt and light to your neighbor.
Because granted, you can be salt and light in a 1x2 prison cell. But that's not it's not exactly helping the situation. And so there's a certain level of sharpness that sober-minded, so we have of phrasing it, where there's work that has to be done, and there should be a rational approach to what is going on, not unaware of the danger, but because there's things we need to do, and so we're out there finding ways in which we can avoid the bully outside, if you will, because the solution isn't
because life has to be lived on. And I think that's where we need to let our viewers know that I've heard about this a lot of time from Christians. No, we rebel against the government, and then I'll ask them, so what's your basis of rebellion? Have they told you to stop preaching the gospel, or have they told you to stop worshiping? They haven't. They've just said, in view of the pandemic, these are the guidelines. And in God's providence, we are living at a time when there is Zoom, all kinds of media platforms that can be used. Now, when we become rebellious, when there's no need to be, what we're actually doing is we're portraying a bad picture of Christians to the world, and we're failing to be salt and light. But we must show the world that yes, we are obeying the governing authority because we recognize that there's only one authority. That's God's authority, and it reveals or manifests itself in different levels of authority. And we will obey them, but within the guidelines I've given, this is what we're going to do. People give an example of John MacArthur in the US. Now, I always say the context is different, particularly in the case of Zambia, if I could use a Zambia case. In John MacArthur's case, when there was a call to close down churches, him and his elders, they did follow that. They closed and started using other avenues, but also following the measures given. The issue came about now when the mayor of California began opening other businesses and just saying church no, religious places no. Now that's why the issue was. The sense of, how do you open bars, shopping places, and then you say church no. Church is essential. So the context was different. But in Zambia, the president or the government doesn't say, no, don't go to church. They said, you can go to church, meet within an hour, but these are the guidelines. So they're not stopping us from meeting or preaching Christ, but they're just saying, in view, this is what you should do. Now that's what you must be able to distinguish. But if the president of Zambia said no churches, and then bars and everything else, then we would disobey him. Because ultimately now, we should not neglect the meeting together.
So there is an actual line that can be crossed by the government.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they can do that.
Because there's also another point of view where it's Romans 13. Whatever they say, they say jump, we say how high. Romans 13.
If they tell us, like in Acts 5, the apostles are told, never preach in the name of Christ. They looked at them and said, now you tell us. Which is right, to obey you or to obey God. Because it's God we are obeying ultimately. So we will preach Christ and we will disobey you. So if the government would cross that line and say, no preaching Christ, no church at all, but then everything else must run, then we'll say no, then in this case, just lock us up. Just lock us up because we will obey God.
No, thank you very much for that, Pastor. That was good. We'll get into segment number 2, our book of the week, after just a quick break. So, stick around.
Another unique thing here is our faculty. Doing what we're doing has limitations. We're a new institution, and it's very expensive to run an institution, and we don't always have the expertise that we need. So here with us, we've got 4 faculty members: myself, Conrad Mbewe, Paul Kayumba, and Isaac Makashini. And all of us have theological training and pastoral experience, and we're going to be able to do that and give that on a permanent, ongoing basis. But there were some other pieces to the puzzle that needed to be filled. So we have permanent adjunct faculty that have made commitments to us. Now, these permanent adjunct faculty members are people who are going to teach the same courses year after year during a 1 or 2 week period, so that all of our students get the same training. This includes people like Tom Askell, who come in and help us in the area of theology. Jim Renahan, who is arguably the foremost Reformed Baptist scholar in the world as it relates to Reformed Baptist theology. Renahan's going to be coming and teaching us. And then Joshua Stoley, who is that high-ranking official in the United States Air Force, who really helped us put together this program. So Dr. Stoley will be coming and teaching in the area of institutional chaplaincy. These men and others who have signed on as well will come in every year and do those same courses, so that when a person graduates from ACU School of Divinity, they've all gotten that same level and quality of education from our permanent faculty and our permanent adjunct faculty.
What excites me about what we're doing at the African University is that it's not primarily about buildings and structures and so forth. It's, first of all, the curriculum itself that we are building and putting into place. But secondly, it's also in terms of the faculty that we are recruiting and bringing together to deliver. We have, for instance, at bachelor's level, yes, we have guys with masters who are no doubt putting in their best, both from within the Zambian context and those that we have brought in from elsewhere. But also when you think in terms of our master's level program, we've got individuals who have doctorates from the most reputable universities around the world, and they're coming in to lecture and to model what it means to have a ministry here. I mean, a good example is having Dr. Vodibo come not just to teach a week or two a year, but literally take residence in Zambia and be part of the African Christian University. I mean, even people in the US are saying, hey, hang on, let's rush over there. What is it that he has seen that we haven't yet seen? So those of us who are in Zambia and Africa should realize just how privileged we are. Because, I mean, it feels like himself, but others like, for instance, Dr. Thomas Cole and so on, are individuals that have actually even written books in their specialties. I'm involved as well, and a lot of you might know that I've also written quite a number of books. I mean, my latest one just came out a few weeks ago, God's Design for the Church, which is being sold right around the world. So this is not just a quick sort of frying the pan kind of team being put together. These are proven lecturers in their field. They have not only studied, but they've practiced, they have written, and they're now being put together to become the faculty for this university. What more can we ask for? God has blessed us in Zambia, in Africa, with the African Christian University, with a top-notch faculty. Let's come in and benefit from the blessing of God into this world.
All right, Pastor, what is our book of the week?
So the book of the week is a summary of Christian doctrine, doctrine by Louis Bekoff. Now, this is it's as it says, summary. So there's a systematic theology by Bekoff, which is a bit intimidating when you look at the sides. But this is like, I'll call it like an appetizer. Yeah, where they give you not dessert, but appetizer. The main meal is yet to come. Yeah. So they give you enough, but not enough to make you full. But enough to want to say, look.
Make you realize there's food there.
There's food to be. Yeah. So he deals with a different topic, justification, the person of Christ, the Trinity, the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and all those things. And he doesn't go in depth. He just tries to help you have this basic understanding of each of those topics, so that hopefully this will give you an appetite to want to read either his systematic theology or any other systematic theology, which is a bit more detailed. So I would encourage, if you are a young Christian, even if you've been a Christian for some time, you want to have your mind around certain doctrines, begin with this. And I can assure you, once you start, you want to read the bigger books.
Yeah, this was mandated reading when I became a Christian.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to work our way through it. The discipleship that we were doing at the time had about 10 books. There was this one. There was The Christian Life by Sinclair Ferguson. The Sovereignty of God by Pink.
AWP.
Yeah.
And sketches from churches.
Yes, sketches from churches. Which is, I think all of those books are here. Yeah. So what is our rating for this one in terms of easy to read?
Easy. I mean, this is 5.
It's a 5.
It's in the middle.
Yeah.
It's 5. You can easily make your way through this book. And he gives definition, when he said providence. He tries to define providence and then shows you from the scriptures. So get this book, and I can assure you, you would want to read his big systematic theology.
It really is the appetite. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope that you take time to track down all these books that we keep recommending to you week after week after week after week. Because they are a valuable resource. Tell us what you thought of them, what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Let's interact. If you have any questions you'd like us to address, within Coffee in the Library, please send them to us through the social media channels, private message if you want to. Feel free. Would also advise you, please encourage you to share the show with a friend. Share it at the beginning, share it at the end. Whoever you think is going to be benefited by what we're discussing, please share it far and wide. We want to be a light on a lighthouse on a hill, pointing people to the shore. All right, and feel free, please subscribe as well wherever you're finding this, so that you can see more and more of the content as we release it. All right, Pastor, till the next time.
Thank you.
See you.
All right, bye.